Oh, hey guys, Isha with Journey to Programming. What I wanted to do today is do a quick chat about how to get into coding as an introduction for an entry-level programmer, or I wouldn't even say an entry-level programmer, but somebody completely new to the process of programming or software development in general. And I'm going to be talking in context of adults or teenagers looking to get into programming because it's either an interest or they're looking for a career change and they're curious about whether or not they should make the transition from a non-programming or engineering field to one where they're going to be sitting behind a desk programming for 8 to 12 hours a day. So what I'm going to do is do a really quick podcast about this, and what I'm going to say first and foremost is I would definitely say if you are gung-ho about making that transition to programming, then more power to you. I highly recommend starting off with either some of the introductory websites out there. There's tons of resources between Learn to Code, websites like Udacity. There's a ton of great resources where you can go online. I'll put some at the end of this post on the actual blog. And you can actually learn from end to end how to implement specific features in a very practical manner using current technology practices. I think that's a great way to start off, especially for those of you that are gung-ho, because you'll learn current tech, you'll begin implementing right away, which is always a lot more fun than going the traditional textbook route and going from fundamentals to more advanced concepts. And it's just a great option to get support from a live community. Now, don't take that as I don't believe you guys should spend some time and learn the fundamentals, because I think that's crucial, especially if you want to advance your skills past that intro level developer stage. But I think as a learning experience, especially once again for you that are really interested, that is a great option. So look at the end of this post. I'll post at least a list of 5 to 10 resources which you can check out. Almost all of them are free, between like Code Wars, Learn to Code. Udacity has a lot of free courses which are excellent courses for development, but they may be a little complex. Khan Academy has some good stuff. If you have Lynda access, you can access those. Pluralsight's great. But once again, look towards the end of this post for that. Now, for those of you that do not really know what the industry is like for programmers, and are just kind of toying with the idea because you've seen that you have acquaintances who are making decent income and they're surviving pretty well, and the market is hot for programmers, so you're thinking about transitioning from your current role or where you're at to one where you get to program and be part of the implementation. I really think one of the best options for you guys, especially if you don't know where you would want to be on the development spectrum, whether you be on web development, software engineering, game development, I think you should definitely look online at the resources I'll be posting below, because most of them will give you a very good idea of what current technology is available and how to use it for an actual project. The reason I'm putting an emphasis on that importance is going blindly into educating yourself in programming can be one really hectic and crazy way to overwhelm yourself, because computer science and programming in general can be extremely complex, and it can take you through fundamentals which are going to be lost in translation, because all you're going to see is a hello world or simple tools which you don't really make sense of in that very early stage. So I highly recommend checking out, once again, Learn to Code. Code Wars is a great resource if you're looking to get interested in how to program and think logically, but do it in a fun way, to see if you're even interested remotely. Now, I will say that is ultimately, Code Wars is not a great gauge of what industry will be like and the many opportunities there are to be in out there, because a lot of them have to do with web development. So if you wanted to go ahead and sign up for one of the web development online programs, they're usually no pressure. You take your time to go through them and learn the basics. Understand JavaScript, and even this JavaScript may be over your head in terms of what that is. So JavaScript would be a great language to start off with. Python's a great language to start off with. JavaScript may be complex and not make sense, so I take that one back. But Python's usually a pretty pretty good one nowadays because there's a lot of great introductory tutorials for people out there now. And also there's a lot of fun Python projects where you'll get to make some quick browser-based applications. And the reason I say that is there's full end-to-end coursework out there for beginners to play around with Python and actually see something being made. Additionally, if you're going to go on the web dev end, learn a bit of HTML, learn what CSS is, but don't spend forever on that. HTML and CSS are not really a programming language. Neither of them are. They're scripting and markup languages. So hypertext and markup is not the same as programming, object-oriented, procedural, etc. So look at them, refresh, keep a good reference, but then move on to something more complex. That's why I mentioned JavaScript. JavaScript will go hand in hand with you learning a little bit of HTML and CSS, and JavaScript will give you that capability to begin seeing some interaction and some graphic manipulation on a basic website, which you can have in a local environment, or you can do in a browser nowadays, which is beautiful if you do one of those tutorials that lets you do everything online. And then begin moving on to understanding maybe a little bit of JavaScript frameworks out there. There's a ton of frameworks out there. I'll post another list with some basics on the available frameworks, but I won't overwhelm you guys. I'll add that to another post where you can look up, hey, there's these frameworks and these stacks for JavaScript which can be utilized for front end, back end, and actually a full stack setup. So I will not go too much into depth on that right now. Then begin looking at back-end languages, but that should be your last priority because you still need to practice and learn. So once again, that's for web developers. If you just want to learn to play around with programming, become more logical, highly recommend Code Wars, recommend going to like Learn to Code, check out the resources I post here later. And then if you're very, very gung-ho in the gaming world, I highly recommend beginning with Unity 3D and just going to Unity's website and look at their tutorial sequences. They have some very introductory tutorials, which would be a great resource for anyone just looking to get started. You could follow them end to end. They may be a little bit overwhelming, but I highly recommend just grinding through. Now, if you want to take a step back, do something a little less complex, then you can look at doing a 2D Maker platform where you'll get to basically do a lot of graphics programming. But if you're going to go that route, look at Code Combat or Coding Wars and look online. Just go to Google and type in learning to program games or programming games, and you'll see a lot of visual programming games. You can kind of begin to learn logic and how to tie things together in terms of controlling a character, creating something interactive. I think that just about wraps up what I would say for how you can get started. Now, I will definitely disclaimer, it is not easy. When you first start, it's going to be boring. You're going to see that everything you're implementing is very, very small in comparison to a grand scheme. And it may feel a little bit underwhelming. You want to sometimes feel a great sense of satisfaction, and maybe you won't be getting that when you're first starting. Maybe you will. I know when I began, I had a tough time because I began the traditional way with formal education. I started with a traditional hello world and then moved into temperature converters and then moved into doing input and output to the command line, and that at the time was very underwhelming because I was looking to do something in comparison to like a AAA game at the time, or doing something like a heavy Photoshop software type thing for companies to be utilizing, but then I was just barely learning how to print out stuff and take input through reading files and doing data serialization. That may be a little bit over you guys' heads, but I'll just say beware of that. And if you feel like you're lost and that it's very boring, remember there's other ways to learn it and there's more interactive options out there. If you really want to stick with it and you want to get through that hump, I recommend at least spending 2 to 3 months really trying, spend a few hours a week at least. I mean, I would honestly spend at least a couple hours a day and just practice implementing things. Go through those websites I'm going to mention at the end of this post and implement things. And as you begin implementing more and understanding how programming works and how it all ties together, you'll begin seeing how you can take these little tools and little pieces that you're building and create something much larger. And that's when it begins getting fun. If you get lost, make sure to reach out to the community. The community is pretty receptive. If you find somebody that's not being receptive, don't be put down. Everybody has to start somewhere. You can always send me a message. You can find me here on Journey to Programming. Send me a message on Request a Topic, and just make sure you just let me know on that you're asking a question about where you're at currently in your programming education or something along that line. I'll definitely get back to you. If I don't, just ping me another message and yell at me about it, or comment on this actual post on the website. I definitely read those. So that's also a great option. Check out websites like Stack Overflow, although it's become very, very difficult to weed through the good and bad comments. The website is still very well moderated, and it generally is a pretty good resource for a lot of people in industry. Unity, if you go on the game engine side, Unity and Unreal both have great communities and forums out there. If you need links to get to them, let me know. I can definitely get those over to you, or I'll even post them at the end of this post. So keep an eye out for that. For web development, Stack Overflow is a great resource. There's tons of other communities out there between Google Plus groups and Facebook groups out there, and other types of podcasts. And that's something I'll definitely also begin sharing with you guys too, if you guys are interested in knowing what other great podcasts or resources are there out there with people like me who are very, very comfortable with reaching out and being friendly and collaborating with other people. So I think that just about wraps this question up. If you guys have any more questions, let me know, and I will definitely make a new post when you guys ask. Otherwise, once again, this is Isa with Journey to Programming. Have a good one.